We're going to be looking at Palestinian society. We're going to be looking at what the PA hopes from the Biden administration. And we're going to be looking at the real question is, should the Biden administration go back to funding the Palestinian Authority? What are they expecting in terms of real policy changes? Now, we've seen these things come in a number of different statements by different Palestinian leaders. And I'll just give you one. This is the U.S. Palestinian Council Vice President John DeBet. This is an American Palestinian organization. And he made, on November 7th, he was on PATV, and this is what he said about what he expects from Joe Biden. What have we obtained so far from Biden? And this is important. Biden will work to restore the funding, and this is all direct quotes. Biden will work to restore the funding to UNRWA. Biden will work to restore the funding to the Palestinian people, which means the Palestinian Authority. Biden promised us to open the Palestinian representative station in Washington, to reopen the American consulate in Jerusalem, and he gave us the right to participate, this is significant, in the BDS boycott campaign in the United States, which is very interesting because, of course, you know that so many states, legislators have actually prohibited organizations that are connected. They've defined it as anti-Semitism and prohibited it in many states. And here, Biden gave them the right to participate. In other words, Biden is not going to support it. I think he was being honest here. Biden isn't going to support it, but he's going to give them the right to participate in the boycott campaign. Now, I'll quickly mention 3 and 4 as well. He promised to reopen the American consulate. That's quite an easy thing to do. Opening the office in Washington is probably also a relatively simple thing to do. I want to focus on the 2 things connected to money and big money and see how, is this, first of all, the right thing to do? Is it an American interest? Can he do it? And I'll start with the first item here. Biden will work to restore the funding to UNRWA. Now, first of all, I want you to understand what that means, restore. I want you to look at what funding was to UNRWA under the Obama administration. These are the 8 years of the Obama administration. The total funding was $2.4 billion in 8 years. That's an enormous amount of money. This is how much it was in US dollars. This is from a government website. This is what UNRWA was getting. $2.4 billion in 8 years. Now, what did the US get for this $2.4 investment? And I say get in terms of solving the problem. I don't mean taking people, making them dependent. I want you to see, what did he get in terms of solving the problem of Palestinian refugees for all this investment? Now, this is also UN website. What are the number of Palestinian refugees? The first chart here is from 2008, and the next one is 2017 at the end. So it went from 4.6 million to 5.3 million refugees. In other words, 700,000 refugees. The United States spent $2.4 billion to UNRWA to presumably solve the refugee problem. And what happened is that they've added nearly 700,000 refugees during that 8 period, and it keeps growing. Now, the United States, then we come to the Trump administration. Trump continued to fund initially, and then he made it less and less till he really cut off the funding. But look, even without the funding of the United States, essentially you had the same rate. If it was 700,000 or so, or a little less, in 8 years, over the 4 years, there was still a rise of 300,000 refugees. So what we're seeing is a little bit less than 100,000 new refugees a year. So every decade, we're talking about almost 1 million new Palestinian refugees. And this is with this incredible investment in money that is not going to try to solve the problem, that is not being used to try to solve the problem. That's what's absurd about this. With this kind of money, you could have built housing for every single Palestinian refugee in Gaza, for sure, Judea and Samaria, for sure. And you could have helped the countries, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, absorb them into their societies very, very easily. Now, of course, this is only American funding. There's also European funding, and there's funding from Canada funds as well. So this is is Trump's deciding not to fund was because this is probably one of the I would say most evil organizations that ever has been created. Every other refugee program that the UN has ever had has always been to get people out of the refugee status, and UNRWA is just growing refugees, literally. So not funding them was a good start. If the entire world would have defunded them until the Palestinians, together with the UNRWA, came up with a real program, instead of adding 100,000 a year, get 200,000, 300,000, get them off at a faster rate than they're coming on, that would be something worth funding. But right now, it's just absurd, as you see from these figures. So if he's going to be going back to Trump's funding of UNRWA, is just going to be without a fundamental change in seeing it as a organization that must solve the problem, then of course it's a total waste of American money. And it is certainly not good for Israel, and it's certainly not good for the Palestinians and those children who are being born into these camps, who have no future. They're the ones who are suffering the most. This is probably one of the worst examples of Palestinian child abuse. The fact that they force these children who are born into this situation to stay there, they don't allow them to come out of the refugee status. This is a Palestinian Authority political decision. They know it will prevent a peace treaty in the long run. They know Israel can't accept these people. They use this as an argument for no peace. So it's a political tool. It is abuse of children and abuse of their adults. And of course, those children eventually grow up hateful of Israel, potential terrorists. It's all a mess. And this has been funded by the Western countries for all these years. Now, the second and more even complicated issue, or that I'll spend a little more time on, is Biden will work to restore the funding to the Palestinian people. This was the second thing that he said. Biden will start to fund the Palestinian Authority. Now, under the Obama administration, the Palestinian Authority was getting, in addition to UNRWA money, they were getting about $300 to $400 million a year, some of it in direct program aid, some of it to general budget. This was what was happening under the Obama administration. Now, that all stopped under Donald Trump. Why did this happen? Let me tell you, you're probably familiar, so I'll go through this quickly. The Palestinian Authority pays monthly salaries to terrorists who are in prison, and they pay lifetime allowances, lifetime monthly payments to families of so-called martyrs. This includes suicide bombers, any terrorist who is killed in the act. It also includes passive martyrs, meaning someone who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and became a martyr. But it definitely includes suicide bombers, mass murderers. All of them get this. There are over 30,000 people in this martyrs group today. There are about 4,000 or so prisoners who are receiving these salaries. Now, just to give you a quick sense of what we're talking about here, every prisoner when he's arrested gets 1,400 shekel, let's say $400 a month. The longer he's in jail, the more it gets. Eventually, he gets up to 12,000 shekel a month, which is $3,500, which is about 3 times the average Palestinian Authority salary. 3 times. So if you murder and you get a life sentence, eventually you're going to be making 3 times the salary of a regular Palestinian. So it's an enormous amount of money. If you're a martyr, your family gets 1,400 shekel for life, about $400 or so. For each wife, an extra 400 shekel. For each child, 200 shekel. Jerusalem residents and Israeli residents get more. So it's actually an encouragement even for Israeli Arab terrorists, or even greater. Again, between the two of these things, it came to about $350 million. Now, to take the big numbers and look at the specific examples, I'll give you 2 examples to understand how evil this is. We've made posters for about 20 of the terrorists, and anyone who wants to just go to our website and ask us, we'll send you them. They can be made into gigantic posters for walls, or they can be just handouts to members of parliament or Congress that you'll be meeting with. Here, for example, is one poster about the terrorist Ajmar Awad and Hakim Awad. These are 2 cousins who went into the home of these victims, which are the Fogel family, Ehud and Ruth Fogel. They murdered them. They slit the throats of their 3 children. Any of you who might have seen the pictures of the rooms with the blood all over the walls and over the beds, and it was something horrific. Well, since they have been arrested and gone to jail, these 2 terrorists have received already $175,000 by the Palestinian Authority. Give you another example. Abdullah Barghouti. He was a Hamas bomb builder because Hamas members also get the same salary. He built the bombs for 6 different bombs: Hebrew University, Cafe Moment, all of these, Sbarro restaurant. These are some of his 67 victims. He murdered 67 people. He has received already $240,000 by being in jail. So there are vast amounts of money that these terrorists are receiving. Now, they're not just receiving them. The United States, Israel, Europe everybody's been putting pressure on the Palestinian Authority to stop this. I want to show you why they don't stop. This is Mahmoud Abbas, soon after the Taylor Force Act, which I'll talk about in a moment, was passed, prohibiting funding the PA because of this. This is what he said on Palestinian TV.
لو عندنا قرش واحد فقط اللي يصرف على الشهداء والأسرى وبعدين باقي الناس يصرف عليهم. هذه مجموعة كوكبة نحن نقدرها ونحترمها ونحن نعرف.
Okay, even if we have one penny, we're going to spend it on terrorists. Why is that where he's spending his money? Every time he has financial crisis, he begs the United States, he begs the European, why don't you stop spending this $350 million? No, if we have one penny left, it's going to these people. And then he finishes this talk with these words: we view the martyrs and prisoners as stars in the sky of the Palestinian people. The sky of the Palestinian people's struggle, they have priority in everything. Anyone who listens to this, I mean, could you imagine? It's just absurd that somebody would want to fund the Palestinian Authority when their leader is saying that the most important people in Palestinian society are murderers, killers. These are the most important people, and we're going to fund them even if we have no money left. It's absurd that anyone would want to fund them. They're not worthy of being funded, but this is a situation we're dealing with now, and we've been dealing with for years now. This is such an important and sensitive issue for me at Palestinian Media Watch, and I'll have to tell you why, because we're the ones who discovered this. The world would not even know about this today if we hadn't started reporting on this. This is an article, this was the front page of the Jerusalem Post. Soon after we discovered this, I went to Washington, and the headline here was: Congress is told that funding PA, by funding the Palestinian Authority, the U.S. is paying salaries of jailed terrorists. PMW behind efforts to get Washington to cut off funding, to cut off support to Palestinians. You know the date of this? July 2011. That's when we started this fight, literally 2011, and then we started traveling around the world to every parliament. Literally in Europe, we had fantastic responses. People put pressure. A lot of parliaments started cutting off funding. Our first success in Congress, we had many debates in Congress, many hearings in Congress. The first actual legislation was in 2016, long before the Taylor Force Act, before anyone else was involved. And here in the Foreign Ops Bill, they said that that any assistance to the Palestinian Authority, there would be a reduction by the amount as they provide as payments for terror. So this, under the Obama administration, and because it was part of the Foreign Ops Bill, it was signed along with everything else. So from 2016 onward, the Obama administration was supposed to deduct about $300 million or so from its aid to the Palestinian Authority. They ignored this law completely. Completely ignored this law. It was on the books, and yet they got the full salaries every year. They got the full money every year. They paid salaries. Obama administration gave money. Don't know exactly how and why the members of Congress who worked on this bill, why they didn't fight against it, but that's what happened. Now, in 2018, the Taylor Force Act was passed, and this again, we passed the material on to members of Congress. We did all the documentation, we had all the proof, and we had all the laws of the Palestinian Authority, and it was passed. Now, after it was passed, it gave the Palestinian Authority a very short, 3 months, I think, the Congress, they had to be reported. So we sent a letter to the Secretary of State as soon as that period was over, where the PA had to stop paying salaries. We sent him a letter proving that the PA continued to pay salaries. And we wrote, and then the Washington Free Beacon reported on this: we urge you to immediately suspend all aid payments to the PA. This was our letter. A few days later, we sent this to members of Congress as well. 14 members of Congress quoted our findings, and they all signed demanding that they cut off all funding, and they did. And the Obama administration did. They cut off funding to the Palestinian Authority. It wasn't only in the U.S. I'll just give you one example. In England, for example, in the Daily Mail, the Sunday Mail, we got a front page story: UK aid to terrorists, and we had 2 full pages inside. We had this all through Europe. The entire world was coming down on the Palestinian Authority, cutting off funding, moving funding into different things, all because of these salaries. 4 countries have cut off funding completely. The United States, the Netherlands did it. This was 2 weeks after I spoke in Parliament there. Parliament voted 96-54 to cut off funding. Australia also, 2 weeks after a delegation of Australians were in Israel and met with me, they cut off funding there. Canada likewise has cut off funding. All of these countries don't give the PA money because of salaries. Australia and Canada fund UNRWA, but they don't give any money to the PA. They don't want their money going to salaries to terrorists. Now, what's the situation today? Today, salaries to terrorists are, in 2018, this is specifically terrorists, it came to 502 million shekels. So we're talking about, let's say, 150 or so million dollars a year. The next year, 2019, which is what we have the full year on, it went even up. So the Palestinian Authority continues to ignore, like Abbas said, we don't care what anybody says. We're going to continue paying salaries to terrorists. Today, because of this, the Palestinian Authority receives no United States funding. Now, should the Palestinian Authority, let's say the Biden administration decides to, if they end up having the majority in the Senate, the even Senate, and they actually cancel the Taylor Force Act, should the PA be eligible? I want to show you that they're still not eligible really to get American funding. And this is a report that we are going to write now and send to Congress, but it's based on a report that we did for Europe. And this is just a few months ago in June, I gave a lecture to members of European Parliament by Zoom. It was called 2 Loopholes in European Union Anti-Terror Funding Laws. And we didn't write this about the United States because the United States wasn't giving money, but we're going to do the equivalent report for the United States if they go about canceling Taylor Force. And what did we show in this report? We showed that the Palestinian Authority transferred over, we took 10-year period or 9-year period, 2011, 2018, which is what we had the final documents on, transferred over close to 4 billion shekel to what they call on their budget PLO institutions. Now, what's happening there is as follows. International aid goes to the PA, and here there's a certain amount of there's a certain amount of transparency. The PLO gives this 4 billion shekel to the PA gives it to the PLO. The PLO, there's no transparency. They can do whatever they want with it. And who does the PLO give it to? The PLO is made up of designated terror organizations. Now, what do I mean by that? This is the PLO website. It still exists right now. This is current website. This here is the symbol of the PFLP. This is the symbol of Fatah. I just discussed a lot of these other ones are also known, active designated terror organizations. I just want to show you the PFLP, for example. PFLP is an active terror organization. PFLP is the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Last year, this young Israeli girl, 17-year-old, was murdered by a bomb that was planted near a pool. The 5 people who were arrested specifically for involvement in this terror attack were all PFLP members, together with another 50 members of PFLP. So what you have is international money going to the PA, and the PA then gives it to the PLO, which the Europeans say, that's fine. But the PLO then disseminates it to PFLP and to Fatah, and these are active terror organizations. So anyone who gives money to the Palestinian Authority is giving money to terror organizations. Now, I want to show you how friends of ours in Europe use our materials. So October, last month, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtaya, he spoke to the European Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee by Zoom. And after he spoke, one of the members of European Parliament from Sweden quoted to him our report. And he said, your money is going to terror organizations. Why are you doing that with our money from Sweden that we're giving to you? So this is, his response is just hysterical. That's why I'm going to read it to you. Funding terrorism, my dear friend from Sweden, Palestinian leadership has never accepted terrorism. This term is not in our mind. We are calling for peaceful resistance, 2 states, negotiating international law. That's what we stand for. I assure you, I want to look in your eyes. I challenge you if a single penny has ever gone to a terrorist organization. So of course, complete lies. The funniest part though is where he says the money is going. You're supporting poor people in refugee camps, in hospitals, 6 people in East Jerusalem. It goes for fighting mosquitoes. It's hysterical because we're watching all the time, glorifying terrorists, salaries to terrorists, honoring terrorists, promoting terror, and he's talking about your money, Sweden, is going to fighting mosquitoes. But in any case, this is the way Europeans are using the material that we give them to fight, and hopefully there'll be follow-up there. Now, The second and the largest funder of the PLO is Fatah. And I want to show you, Fatah is Mahmoud Abbas's organization. People assume Fatah is moderate. That's what they say. We like Fatah. We support. I want to show you what Fatah is doing with this money that they're getting from the PLO, which they're getting from anyone who funds the Palestinian Authority. Now, first of all, there's a branch of Fatah called the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades. This is a designated terror organization by the EU, by the European countries, by the United States. Fatah is giving money openly. They don't deny that they're funding the Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades. So there's this willful blindness by the Europeans and by the United States until recent years. Giving money to PA, gives it to Fatah, and it's going straight to another terror organization. Now, I want to show you what they use it for directly. This is Fatah, not Al-Aqsa Martyrs. This is Fatah's education program. They have an education program. They produce educational documentaries. They teach the Palestinians. This is something they produced. I want to show you what they taught them. This is a year ago. This is not old. This is 2019. What is Fatah teaching its people about the essence of Jews?
هناك في أوروبا يقيم القوم مخيماتهم وأماكن سكناهم. جيتوهات ضيقة تبنى أعمدتها على الانفكاك عن البشر مرورا واشمئزازا من أغيار أناس هم أفاعن أبناء أفاعن حسب رؤيتهم. هناك تحاك كل مؤامرات الاستغلال ويكره سكان الأرض جيتوهات القوم ومخازن تصدير الحقد والاستغلال.
Okay, this is Fatah education. It goes on and on and on and on with all this hate. It's all about what the Jews were like in Europe. And it literally turns history on its head. The Jews were in ghettos because the non-Jewish world didn't want to have Jews around them, and they put them in these awful ghettos. What does he say? The Jews put themselves in ghettos because there they could secretly scheme to subjugate all humanity. And these are some more quotes from this documentary. The Jewish tribe led the project to enslave humanity. Jews are the enemies of humanity. That's what they're telling them. That reminds us of other evil forces in the world that said that. The Jews allied with the Nazis to burn Jews to accumulate wealth. The Jews say only we are people, all the others are animals. Jews were hated because of their racism and their filthy behavior. You see, the Jews are such a bad problem that anti-Semitism was brought on the Jews by themselves. The Jews deserve what they were getting because of their projects to enslave humanity. This is the worst kind of anti-Semitism, and this is coming from Fatah, not just stuck on their website, but actually they had their educators sit down, think up how can we present the Jewish people to Palestinians, and this is what they came up with. And as far as the last time we looked, this is still available on their website today, this video, this little mini documentary. Now, I want to show you what else Fatah does. Fatah celebrates murder today. You have here a picture of Rabbi Raziel Shebach. He was murdered in 2018. These are his wife and his children. He was murdered in a drive-by shooting by Ahmad Jarrar. Now, a year later, that means last year, on the one-year anniversary of the day that Ahmad Jarrar was killed by Israel, Fatah posted on its Facebook page this picture of the terrorist with the smiling face, and listen to what they said about here. He is the star of the night that guides those wandering. He's the magnificent one, the crown of the jewel, an ideal example of humanity. So a murderer in a drive-by shooting of an innocent Israeli civilian is the ideal example of humanity according to Fatah. Rabbi Achiad Ettinger, father of 12 children. This is him. He was murdered last year by Omar Abu Layla. How did the Palestinian Authority respond to that? They called him the heroic martyr Omar Abu Layla. The perfect person is realized within him. This is Fatah. Now, look at this next one. This is the deputy head of Fatah. This is Abbas's number 2. And possibly he will be replacing him. He, right after Abu Layla did this terror attack, he went and made this speech to Palestinian youth. And he says, he is a self-sacrificing fighter. We're extremely proud. This is Omar Abu Layla, who implemented the people's choice. He represents all of you, represents all young Palestinians. He was talking to Palestinian youth. He, a murderer, murderer in cold blood, this father of 12 people, he represents all Palestinian people. And this is coming from the number 2 in Fatah. And this is what people have to understand. We're not dealing with a moderate organization. We're dealing with a terror organization. It's not only funding them, but it's telling its people that murderers are Palestinian heroes. I'll give you one more example because it includes the religious side, which is so important for Palestinians. 2 years ago, Kim, mother of a 15-month-old, and Ziv, a father of 3, they worked in Barkan, a co-worker. Barkan is the center north of Jerusalem where Arab Palestinians and Israelis worked together for many years. Palestinian terrorist came in. He was a co-worker of theirs. He came in with a rifle. He murdered Ziv, and then he tied her up. He didn't know what to do with her. He made some phone calls. They said, kill her. So while she was tied up on the ground, literally, he executed her. This is what Ashraf Na'ala did. Now, he escaped, and he was actually free for about 2 months till he was killed. After a month and a half, Fatah put this post on its Facebook page, and this is what's so shocking. The wanted one, Ashraf Na'ala, Allah is protecting you and taking care of you. Fatah was telling its people that murdering Kim and Ziv was something that Islam supports. And this isn't Hamas saying this is Fatah. Allah is protecting you and taking care of you. That's why those Israelis, the Zionists, haven't caught you, because Allah is protecting you. Of course, a few weeks later, they did catch him, and then there were posts all over the place turning this monster into a hero. Now, also, I talked about child abuse of their own children. I want to show you one of the worst examples of child abuse that we've seen. This is on Fatah's Facebook page. This was a video of a young girl reciting a poem, and listen to this message that she has that Fatah thought was valuable for all children, so they put it on their Facebook page.
فأمه وعدته بهدية إن هو أنهى طعامه تساءل بجنون ألعبة تكون أقبلت أمه بطلة بهية تحمل الهدية نظر إليها فإذا بها بندقية صاح بأعلى صوته يا أمي يا أمي ما هذه أهذه هي الهدية ضمته إليها واحتضنته بيديها وقالت يا بني لم نخلق للسعادة فأنت في نظري مشروع للشهادة فالقدس لنا وسلاحنا إسلامنا وذخيرتنا.
Okay, this is, like I say, just unbelievable child abuse coming from Fatah to its people. This is a mother who supposedly is saying to her child, you are not destined for happiness, you're destined for martyrdom, you are nothing but ammunition for Islam. Islam is our weapon and you are the ammunition. You, child, a Palestinian child, have no value in and of yourself. No value. You are only ammunition for Islam in order to die as a martyr. And this is what Fatah felt was important. I don't know if you heard in the background, the technician in the room was clapping as she said, and our ammunition is our children. So this is unbelievable. This is, like I say, it's child abuse. And this is coming from Fatah. And again, anyone who funds the PA is funding Fatah. All of this is coming from the PA. So what we see from all this, now this is Fatah. Finally, one final point I want to show. The PA itself is not worthy of funding either. This is the money that they give to Fatah. Now I want to show you the way the PA is spending its money, not only in terms of salaries to terrorists. I want to show you an example of a Palestinian school book. I mentioned before Dalal Mughrabi. Dalal Mughrabi hijacked a bus, killed 12 Israeli children and 25 adults. This is what it says in a Palestinian school book about her. Heroes have an important position in every nation. We're proud of them, sing their praise, etc. Everyone wishes to be like them. And then it gives examples. One of the examples, who has forgotten Dalal Mughrabi? Everyone wishes to be like them. Who has forgotten Dalal Mughrabi? You, Palestinian child, are supposed to be like Dalal Mughrabi. It is black on white, mass murderer of children in a Palestinian school book. What age, kids? This is 5th grade. These are 11-year-old children who are being told this. This whole article, this whole story here about heroes ends with these words. Bravo to the heroes and scorn to the cowards. Scorn to the cowards. You 11-year-old child, you don't want to die in a terror attack like Dalal Mughrabi killing Israelis? Well, you're a coward, and scorn to you. This is the message to 11-year-olds. This, again, is what foreign funding is doing in the Palestinian Authority. I want to leave time for questions, so I'm not going to play this video and a few others. I'll go through them quickly. But Abbas's advisor on TV, this is his advisor on Islam. He went on TV and he said, There is nothing new in the conflict with Palestinians and Israelis today. It's the historic conflict between truth, falsehood, and Satan and their supporters. And then Israel is Satan's project. It's Allah's project versus Satan's project. Israel is Satan's project. We are Satan's partner in the world. The problem is not land. The problem is Jews. This is coming from the top religious figure in the Palestinian Authority. The problem is Jews. And this is on official PATV. Just a few months ago, he went on TV and took it to the next level. He quotes from the Quran. He says, the Quran says, kill them. Who's it talking about? He says, yes, kill the transgressors, someone who attacks you, your home, your land, your homeland, your property, your honor, your family. He lists 10 things here, all of which they accuse Israelis of doing. And then he's saying, this is what the Quran is saying, kill them. And then he ends up with, kill them wherever you find them. Top religious figure saying if someone is taking your homeland, taking your rights, your property, you have a right to kill them. So if you wonder why Palestinians kill Israelis, and if you wonder why Fatah said that Allah thinks that the murder of those 2 young people, that Allah is protecting him, it's because this is their attitude. Their attitude is that every single Israeli is worthy of death, and it's coming from, like I say, the top people in the Palestinian Authority. They also teach killing. Again, this is Palestinian Authority. They teach it with music. This is one music video. These are all music videos from this year that appeared numerous times on Palestinian TV. This great people fights with daggers, knives, and cannon shells. Again, I'm not going to play it because I want to leave time for questions. Here's another video. Allah is stronger and greater than the children of Zion. This is, again, song on Palestinian TV. Here on Palestinian TV numerous times this year. Jihad is necessary. The oppressors have gone too far. Jihad is necessary. And so many other examples like this. So they've got the religious figure telling you have a right to go out and kill Jews. You have to kill them if they take these things. And then they teach it to young people through music. So you're getting it to every different part of society. You're all getting the same messages. Finally, I will touch on the land issue. Palestinian Authority tells Washington, we want West Bank, Gaza Strip. We want West Bank. What do they tell their old people? I'm just going to give you a few examples, all from the last few weeks. October 28th, just a few weeks ago, this is what Fatah posted on their Facebook page. These are the maps, all the maps of all of Israel. And what's the text? Here we remain, we will not leave. Palestine is the goal that dignifies and a flag that waves. This is Palestine, and we will not leave. This is ours. This is from Mahmoud Halabush again. This is Abbas's advisor, and it says here on top, it was called Palestine, it is called Palestine, and it will be called Palestine until the promise of Allah arrives. It was Palestine forever. And this is the map that they show. This is a Palestinian textbook. This is the geographical area of the state of Palestine. No questions about this, the Palestinian flag covering it all. And this is a fascinating one. I will play this one for you. This was a Palestinian teacher who did an exhibit in her school, and this is what she was teaching the children. I want you to see what they're teaching, not just in the textbooks, but in an exhibit in the school, and then how the principal of the entire school is involved in this. Okay, so just stop it for a second. What you see here is a map of all of Israel, Tiberias, Haifa. Here you've got Judea, Samaria, West Bank, Ramallah. There are Israeli flags all over the place, and every Israeli flag is ripped in half. They've got the Palestinian flag on top. The Israeli flag ripped in half symbolizes the end of Israeli rule, even here from Haifa down to the bottom. And what does she say? This is our vision. We hope to liberate Palestine.
والأمل لنا في تحرير فلسطين، في تكسير القيود، تكسير الحواجز وهدم الجدار الفاصل كما هدم جدار برلين بإذن الله، ونصل إلى تحرير
صورة معبرة وخارطة. يعني نتمنى أن نصل إلى.
We hope to achieve this soon. We're going to liberate Palestine. And then she turns around to the principal, who agrees as well. So here you realize that from the principal down to the teacher, down to Palestinian Authority TV, this is what anyone who funds the PA is funding. They're not funding peace. They're funding the next war with the Palestinian people. And of course, here's a religious leader saying that it's Islamic land and therefore you can't do anything. My question is, will the Biden administration demand that all of this be corrected before reinstating funding? Does he want American money to fund anti-Semitism, teaching that Jews are the most evil people in the world, a threat to all humanity, trying to subjugate humanity, that Jews have to be killed? Do they want to fund celebrating the murder of Jews? All of this is happening today, in addition to funding the salaries of terrorists. We have to hope that we can get this message to the Biden administration. Anyone who wants a copy of this presentation, you can either send us by WhatsApp, although you might not have our WhatsApp, just send an email to pmw@palwatch.org, and we will send you a full copy of this presentation.